and I put my heart into everything I do. All the hard work pays off. That's why I work hard, no days off. I'm only human, I make mistakes, but I keep it real. No, I'm never fake. This is what it takes to be great. Everything I make gon' be great. This is what it takes to be great. Coming in.
I was gonna be going to the military. I was still in high school at the time. I was a senior. I had already enlisted, and I would say maybe about a month or so before I left, I witnessed the Ultimate Fighter. It's a reality show that the UFC has. I just kind of saw what these guys were doing, and I didn't think that I could beat these guys up or anything, but I just saw like the passion and the drive that these guys had whenever they were fighting each other. That day wasn't something where it was just like an automatic life-changing experience, but it did put something in the back of my head that maybe this is something that I could do. So I go to the basic training, and in the Army there's a block of instruction called the Army Combatives Program, Modern Army Combatives Program. And I did fairly well in the basic training aspect of it. And then whenever I got to my duty station, which was in Belgium, I was in Belgium for 2 years. Long story short, I wound up being on the Fort Hood Army Combatives team. So my first 3 years in the military were a dental assistant. I found that I was decent at fighting, and I really practiced as hard as I could to really perfect my craft. And my first 8 fights were all finishes. I was finishing the guy in the first round within minutes, and I wasn't allowing the fights to go to the judges. So I really didn't get that moniker there in Belgium, but whenever I came back to Fort Hood, I was training at a gym called Fighter Sports. One of the coaches there, he kind of asked me about my career and my amateur fights, and I told him how my fights were going whenever I was in Europe. And he was like, so you don't allow the fights to go to the judges? And I was like, no. He's like, so you're the judge, like you dictate where the fights go. And it's something that I played with a little bit, and I threw on social media, and people really fell in love with it. And I got out of the military, started pursuing my professional career, and it's brought me to where we are today.
No, down!
The day of the fight and up to the weigh-ins, you're just a nervous wreck. And anyone who says that they're not nervous is flat out lying to you. Anytime I'm getting ready to walk to the cage and I hear my music, you have like these butterflies that you can't contain. And one of my first boxing coaches, he was my first sergeant in the time of whenever I was in the Army. I was a specialist, and right now he's a command sergeant major. He just got back from overseas. And he told me something I'll never forget. He says, it's okay to have butterflies before a fight, as long as you can get them to fly in formation. It's a fun experience, but at the same time, you have something in the back of your head thinking like, what am I doing, right? Like you see people in the crowd like hanging out and have a good time, and all eyes are on you. And like I said, you're just like, what am I doing? You know, it's a surreal experience. But once you get into that cage and they announce your name, and all the cameras get out of the cage, and it's just you and that guy, that's when it's kind of like, it's as primal as you can get. It's just you and another person, and best man wins. There's no team that you can blame, or there's no, I don't know. Like in team sports, you always have the option to be like, well, it wasn't my fault. In any combative sport, it's just you and the other person. So everything's on you, whether you win or lose. You know, it's completely up to you, and a lot of that comes from your training to make sure that you're doing the right things in training and dieting correctly and training to your fullest potential. So yes, very, very, very nerve-wracking, and but if you can use it to your benefit, it usually works out well.
You're watching Sports Tonight, San Antonio's only nightly 30-minute sportscast with exclusive sports coverage you won't find anywhere else.